a bit. I streamed in horizontal versus vertical, but I'm back to vertical. And guess what? I didn't charge my iPhone 15 like I should have. So now we're back to streaming on the iPhone 11. But you know what? I kind of like this because I'm going to have one phone that I use for my actual, like most of my video making will be, you know, my one phone. And I can use this phone. You know, I can just use it on Wi-Fi. I still need to get it canceled up. I'm having problems with AT&T still. It's like they don't want me to leave, so I'm like, you can't hold my phone hostage. I even canceled today. They said that my service was canceled, but I didn't get like any notification email or text like confirming that. And I would think if I had canceled my service, my phone would no longer dial out. Whatever. Okay, so I'm just doing, this is gonna be a bedtime brush through. Because even though I spent like time combing out my hair earlier, I kind of just wanted to I know I'm up late. I know I said I want to do this again, but every time after I wash my hair, it always happens. So let's just be authentic and honest. It's gonna happen every time. I shouldn't wash my hair at 8 in the morning. I really should, but it's what I've learned. Okay. I just like to do a second brush through after I wash my hair, just because I feel like it kind of ensures that my hair is actually tangle free. And I wanted to kind of let my roots dry a little bit earlier. Like I know in the past, like I would, like years ago, I used to ride my bike to work. After I wash my hair, wet is a noodle. And I used to leave my hair in a wet braid, and that used to be my grape jelly jam. And my hair would be so wet in the braid that in the evening my hair was still wet until I took it out of the braid next day. And even though I was a once a week hair washing girly, there was a time period I was washing my hair like every 3 days or something, which for me, I think it's kind of excessive these days when I think about it. I don't think I'd go that often ever again. Is once a month a little bit of a stretch? I kind of feel like maybe it is, but I don't know. It just happened this time that I did it this way. I mean, one time I went 2 weeks. I guess it's just going to depend on how I feel about it going forward. This just ensures that my hair is 100% tangled to my satisfaction. And that's what I want. I just want my hair to be detangled 100% to my satisfaction before 99 land. So that I feel like, come morning time, I'm ready to go. A little bit of crunchiness from the leave-in conditioner. I know they say it doesn't, but I always feel a little bit. I do about just like a little bit here and there. My hair was wet earlier, but I've kind of let it mostly dry out. I mean, there's still dampness in there. It's not like completely dry. Like, and I always put water in my hairbrush to kind of help detangle through. But I just find that after I have combed it out, I don't need to have it sopping wet for bed. Because the point was I was trying to dry it up a bit to where it is going to be slightly damp in the braid from brushing it with some water in it. But I kind of wanted to dry it so that my roots were dry. Like, I just kind of wanted to let my roots dry a little bit, I think. Well, in this weather, your roots will definitely dry. Ah! I mean, my hair gets really big after I wash it. It really does. I love that. I do love that. And I know some people think like oh, you're finally brushing your hair over your face. No, I'm not doing this intentionally. It's just like after I wash my hair, it gets really big compared to like. I mean, I have thick hair, but it gets more voluminous. So I just it kind of covers my face more. If that makes any sense, I don't know. I have like 1980s Moody Blues songs stuck in my head. On the space shuttle, they listen to Moody Blues though. U.S. space shuttle back in the 80s. It was a thing. Like, the thing about the Moody Blues is most of them have passed away now. I think John Lodge is still alive. Justin Hayward's still alive. I mean, I'm not like the biggest fangirly, but I just think, I mean, they were older than my parents, okay? That tells you something, but I mean, they stopped touring years ago, but it just goes to show you, like, I love the Moody Blues. Like, I like different bands, but I will always have a heart, like a place in my heart for the Moody Blues. And Mike Pender was so interesting. Like he was British, and he immigrated to America. And how did he achieve like such an American accent in just like 20 years of living there? That I always thought was so interesting. But then I guess later he did a video saying how some of his British accent came back when he was visiting actually Ray Thomas in the UK. And you know, Ray Thomas, I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy because I feel like, yeah, he probably wanted to retire because, like, I feel like at some point he just felt like he wasn't, like, even though he was part of the band, he wasn't, like, a major part of the band. Because he played the flute, but he didn't, and he sang some backups, but I just feel like you could tell at some of the concerts he really, like, I don't know, like, he was having fun, but you could kind of tell he always felt like he was kind of like third wheeling or something. And as much as I like Justin Hayward, I do think that sometimes he kind of thought he was the star of the show at all times. And, like, I don't know, it's just interesting. And you know, the way that they painted the whole, like, oh, the Moody Blues, like Mike Pender left, he didn't want to leave, by the way. He just thought that they should all move to America and work there, but they didn't want to move to America. So that's what that was about. And also, I think he kind of moved on with his life. And I don't know. They were big, but they weren't like Beatles big. They weren't like, I don't know, later big. Like, they were big, but I think it was also during a time period where, I don't know, you could be a celebrity, but a musician, but it seemed like, I don't know, from what I heard, it just sounded like Justin Hayward said they put a lot of their own money into their music. Like, even though they had money, he said a lot of their money went back into creating more music. So it's not that they didn't have money, but they weren't living the Beyonce lifestyle, okay? It just wasn't like that. I really do like the Moody Blues, like Melancholy Man, Mike Pender. Oh my gosh, you know, because Mike Pender had more of this earthy, soulful kind of singing to him. I think he was just very heavily influenced by American soul music, and that's what he always said. And originally, the Moody Blues was kind of like a British R&B band, which probably seems weird because, like, they're not soul, they're not from the American South. But that's how they were influenced. Like back when Denny Lane was in the band, and Graham Edge was one of the originals, and so was Mike Pender. But then Denny Lane left. Denny Lane was actually in Paul McCartney's band for a while, Wings. He's a very interesting person. But they're more soulful. Although I do like, when I first heard it, like some of the more soulful early to mid 60s music, it just seemed weird to me, but now that I listen to it now, I have more appreciation for it. Because I've just been more of a later, like, when I was a little kid, in late elementary school, like, So La Mer, the Blue Ocean one, album, listen to that on heavy rotation. I don't know, and that just really influenced. There will be a reason. That one really. But I also love Mike Pender, and there were some Ray Thomas. He also sang the lady song for my lady. I think it's a song for his wife, but I used to tell my dog lady that it was a song for her. I don't know. Certain bands influence me in a way, not like influencer culture, but just like touch me in a way that I don't, like, nowadays there are songs that are trending, but I don't think like there's ever gonna be an album again by a band that will ever touch me the way that some of those songs did. And some people are like, but there's no new up and coming rock bands. Like there's heavy metal and there's pop music. But I don't know, does there need to be a rock and roll band? Probably not. But there are some newer songs that I like, but there's nothing that's like touched me the way that certain songs did. And this was more music of my mom's generation, but it became music for me too. And I do love a lot of 80s bands that have continued on until today. But there's just a certain style, like the Moody Blues had a style that no other band had. And they're never going to go on tour again, and they're just so unique. So I highly recommend you listen to some Moody Blues songs. Just very magical. I love the Moody Blues. Anyway, yeah. I don't need a reason. I think that was some of the song. Understand. It's like a melancholy, a longing, nostalgia. And I don't have a melancholy, longing, and nostalgia for the things that they sing in the song. I feel like the songs just touch me in a way. Sometimes I have nostalgia, but I feel like nostalgia has to be very well balanced. Nostalgic balance, the balance of nostalgia. You have to balance nostalgia with present moment, discernment, and future forward. I'm not saying you have to be an optimist, but you have to try and make the best of every situation, right? Because I think a lot of people, they either come from a place of believing that they're not going to amount to much, or some people just think that they're going to do so much. And then it's not that you can't have goals for yourself, but I feel like maybe it's not good to be like so, like, you know, because everybody's like, do you have a 5-year plan? And when I was younger, I never understood what that was. Like, I was like, a 5-year plan? How can you know what your life's gonna look like in 5 years? But my mom, who I think about all the time, like her 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan was to have a garden and fruit trees, and I don't know. Do I consider myself a person in the San Bernardino Mountains? I mean, one day I will probably live in their house. I think about that. I mean, for years from now, I want them to live a long time. But I do think about that sometimes. I don't know. I don't feel as attached to the mountain anymore. I talked about that recently. Like 15 years ago, my content, 14 years ago, 12 years ago, my content was very heavily mountain influenced. And it's just not anymore because I haven't, like, I didn't used to understand the concept of picnicking in a park in a city, because I was like, isn't a picnic something you have in the mountains? Like I always thought of a picnic as something like you go to the mountains and you go on a hiking trail and you're more isolated, and that's what a picnic is. Like, I didn't really understand the concept of having a picnic like in a park in the city. Like, to me that used to seem so odd. Like, I used to think, well, if you're gonna have a picnic, why don't you go to the mountains and do it? Because I grew up in the mountains. I didn't go to college living in the mountains, but I grew up in the mountains, and then I lived in the mountains for a bit in my early 20s. And I think, and I used to go back up there a lot, but I don't really go to the mountains anymore. because I just don't have a reason to. Like, so thinking about maybe one day living there again. I think about that. But do I feel attached to it? Because I don't. I just don't. I don't feel that connection to it that I want to stay. Like, people used to act Lululemon, saying things like they were so scared because the mountains were so quiet and they had to sleep with their gun. And I'm like, that's stupid. I grew up in the San Bernardino Mountains, and I knew what quiet was and the sound of a coyote and the sound of birds and walking in the forest, deep into the forest. Maybe I shouldn't have sometimes when later on I saw a bear. And yes, it is scary to see a bear. You don't choose to see the bear. That, I found that so comical when everybody's like, I choose the bear. And I'm like, you have never had a bear run 50 feet in front of you. So then you might not choose the bear. But people who say that never saw a bear. They're just saying. Because once you see a bear run in front of you, and you know you shouldn't be out in nature by yourself, kind of changes your thoughts. So, I don't know, like, I was never a mountain climbing kind of girl, but I used to ride my bike in the mountains, I used to hike in the mountains, I used to walk in the mountains, and I was, I don't know, the mountains was a big part of my content if you look at my earlier channel, my first channel. But I've kind of grown away from the mountains because do I feel like an affinity for mountain life anymore? I just don't. Like, you can see the mountains every day, but I don't know. And it's funny because there's a big difference between people who live in the mountains and people who live in the city. And people who go up to the mountains like for the weekend and get an Airbnb, they call it a cabin. But people who grew up in the San Bernardino Mountains, we never called that house a cabin, we called it a house. And some of the houses were built to look like cabins, but we never would, like, a cabin like connotes just like a weekend trip because it's tinier and smaller. But we never called houses cabins, we just called them a house. Yeah, it's interesting, you know? So I don't know. So I think about that. So I know, I thought, am I going to rename my other channel because it's California Mountain Art and Life? But I don't have, because I feel like at this point in my life, I have no connection to the San Bernardino Mountains anymore. Like, my connection to it is just diminished. Like, I just don't go up there anymore. Like, it was a big part of my life and my content up until, I don't know, the panini. And I could go up to the mountains, but I just don't really go up there. So I see my family down here, and I just don't have a reason to go up to the mountains anymore. I think another reason is I don't drive, so maybe if I drove, I would feel differently. And I used to be more adventurous, where I would go like on far-flung trips and places that people with cars haven't even gone. But now I'm just like more like, I don't know. I don't really go a lot of places anymore. I mean, I was going shopping with my sister for a while, but I just don't feel a strong need to go a lot of places. Just kind of a homebody these days. Because going places costs money. If you have unlimited income, maybe going places is for you. But like I said, I'm not even running my AC because I'm trying to save money. I'm just practical, you know. I might spend money on some things, but I'm also in a season of my life where I'm like, you know what? I need to save my money. Because when you're supporting two people on one income, they're just not as fun as the people who do whatever they want.